Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is Nidhi Motiramani, Treasurer at iFest. Before we start the presentations, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. T. Devi, who is going to chair the presentations today. Dr. T. Devi is an Assistant Professor of English and Research Supervisor at SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Ramapuram, Tamil Nadu. She has more than 17 years of experience in teaching. She has published 15 research papers and has also contributed 10 research articles in book chapters. She has conducted nearly 20 workshops, FDPs, and training programs. Thank you so much, ma'am, for gracing this session with your presence. I welcome you, ma'am, on behalf of the entire iFest family. Uh,
Uh,
be-
thank, thank you, Nidhi, for your short intro, and of course it is sweet too. Okay, Nidhi, I have a question. Are all the six presenters available here?
Wait, ma'am, let me check. Yes, ma'am, most of them are here.
Okay, then shall we start, Nidhi?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Just a minute. Before we start the presentations, I would like to inform all the participants that a bell will be rung after 10 minutes, which means that your time is about to get over. You will be given another 2 minutes to finish your presentations. After those 2 minutes, another bell will be rung. After that bell, you have to end up your presentations anyhow. Are these rules clear? And yes, one more thing, this session is being recorded for quality assurance. Yes, ma'am. Shall we start the presentations now?
Yes, ma. Yes.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the session Palace of Illusions of Mapping the Shifting Paradigms of Postmodern Society. At the outset, I place my wholehearted gratitude to IFIS for giving me this wonderful opportunity. I'm Dr. T. Sridevi, and this session will run till 2:30 p.m. So once again, I repeat what Nidhi already told. So each participants will be given 10 to 12 minutes for their presentation. It's followed by 3 minutes QA session. Okay, and the feedback also will be shared in in those minutes. Very clear? Shall we move with the first presenter,
Yes, ma'am.
Haimanti? The first presenter for this session is Haimanti, a freelance communication trainer. Her topic is her paper article's title is A Postmodern Study of the Folk Culture of Bengal, the Ball Tradition. Haimanti, the session is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to present my paper over here. And as ma'am already told you that my name is Hoimonti, and I am a communication trainer and a business storyteller. And this topic has been, a constant research uh, on my own terms. I would like to present the paper now. As already ma'am told that the topic is a postmodern study of the folk culture of Bengal, the Baul tradition. To start with, a little bit history of Baul is necessary. So we say that Baul is has started from time unknown. So we also say that Baul was the first Baul was Lord Shiva. Okay, so it was from time unknown, and the philosophy existed already. So yeah, but the literature which is found today, we can say it times up from 7th century, which is called the Bodh Avaduti. So basically it's an amalgamation of various sects and various philosophies like Sufism, Vaishnavism, Tantra, Buddhism, Vedanta. So we can say that Baul is rootless, and it accepts everything without boundaries. It's inclusivity and the contemporary spirit. It has taken today as a relevant form of art, a relevant form of poetry, song. So I had tried a modern, postmodern view of this Baul tradition on the basis of the literature of their songs, their poetries, which they use till date. So basically, the poems which I have been analyzing, I have seen the characteristics of multi ethnicity. I have seen it through a feminist way of studying. I have done a study of existential crisis as a a concurrent theme in Baul poems. Then relativism is there, and magic realism, temporal distortion, and the subaltern consciousness. So all of these characteristics have been concurrent in the poems, in the literature, which is prevalent till date. So we can say that multi-ethnicity because it has derived its philosophies, its sources. Even the poems have been very multi-ethnical. In the poem Kahere, so I have placed it in the paper. So I'll just elucidate it a little bit here. So the poem is from 7th century Bodha Avaduti, and it was written in Maithili, Pali and Bangla dialect, which has now changed a little. Structure has been a little changed. So it actually says the poet, who is Busuku is the poet, and he's searching for himself, the deer. He's searching for the deer. He's the hunter, and he's searching for the deer. And he's searching actually for himself, and the realization later on that the search he's doing outside is of no use. He has to search that deer within him. So this is a kind of, we can say that its ethnicity has been from different sects, from different philosophies. So certainly we see a lot of multi-ethnic characters in these poetries. Then we can say that in feminist study, I had studied a poem called Mon Tumi Purush Ki Nari. So which translates to heart, are you a man or a woman? Okay, so basically in Baul, the mystical three-streamed river, namely Ida, Pingala, and Shushumna. So these are the psychic channels which manifests life. Okay, so Ida is the feminine, Pingala is the masculine, and Shushumna is a place where Ida and Pingala manifests life. So it basically this poem also talks about the female consciousness, the female experiences. And the most interesting part is most of these poems have been written by male poets. So it talks about feminine energy, the kundalini, and the masculine energy, the formless man. And basically the man who is the formless and unmoving, and woman who is the flowing force of creation. So when this amalgamation happens, that a yogi or a practitioner finds this formless unmoving man and the flowing woman inside as a force of creation, then they reach beyond it. So they reach beyond the genders, and then they question themselves, who am I? So there comes the existential crisis of a man, of searching for the meaning of life, the meaning of oneself. So this contemplation of knowing oneself, and the search of truth, as we have already discussed a lot about that truth has so many layers. It's not totalitarian. So with so many layers of truth. Especially I have discussed this existential crisis through a poem called Amar Bhetor Ami. So it basically questions that who am I inside myself. Okay, so the next is relativism. Certainly a use of paradoxical language is there, esoteric language is there. And they say, the Bawal people say that why do they use this esoteric language, this paradoxical language? Because they do not want their wisdom to be available like an information. They want it to be a sort of trial, a sort of contemplation which needs to happen every person to attain that wisdom. Otherwise it's just information. So basically this upside down language which they call uladgan, this gives a space for all sorts of interpretation. People can interpret it in so many different ways. So this particular poem, which is Hey Kalare, it's about Krishna. So it can be looked at as a love lorn call for beloved. It can be for guru, for god. But according to Busuku, he says that Krishna, who is the ideal male consort of Shunyata Devi, who is Lady of Nothingness, and Vaja, which is the thunderbolt, penis god, moving through the canals of lotus vagina goddess. So, there are different levels of interpretation, and it's all open to interpret, because that's their, way of contemplation, that's their way of Sahaj Yoga. So we see also a lot of temporal distortion and magic realism here and there in different poems. And especially the one which I will speak about today is Ghum Bhenge Bish Moja Hoyeche. So this is kind of a dreamy kind of a scenario where a person who wakes up from the dream and sees that very magical things are happening. So in this poem we see a lot of esoteric language, and we see that there is spatio-temporal pattern of usage, and the embryological development is also upside down. So there are images like my I am eating my food and my father is getting married before I was born. So this kind of spaces of different times, usage of it together, that makes it really interesting. Then obviously temporal distortion is very evident characteristic in most of the poems we see. um then I would like to address that who is Baul. Baul is the subaltern voice, the subaltern consciousness, because he represents and addresses the voice of poor. So in lot of the songs, especially dated from the freedom struggle, the colonization, the zamindari system, and we also see it through industrialization. We see at the backdrop, we see poverty, we see famine and drought happening, and at the backdrop of it we see a lot of poems maintaining that spirit, but speaking of the wisdom of the Baul wisdom. So I have talked about Kanu Kahe Rai. This is one poem which I have described in my paper. And to conclude, I would just say that the fluidity, the inclusivity of Baul culture, the contemporary spirits of living in the world, addressing the issues of this world, and contemplating on one own self and humanity above all, makes it relevant till date. So, thank you so much for giving me this chance to present my paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Hemati. Participants, this is time for question answer. So if you have any questions, you please ask with Hemati. Any questions? Hemant, yes. Okay. There is an appreciation. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Haimanti, I have a question with you.
Sure.
The feministic views in this literature you have presented well, but can you connect with present day, that is, how to say that, can you relevant with present day context?
Okay, so I would just go to this poem which I had just talked about. Um, Mon tumi purush ki nari. So it is basically asking about um, whether you're asking to the heart, that whether heart as a human being, that whether you are man or a woman. So basically every man has a feminine side inside, and every female has a, a masculine side inside them. It's just a matter of, moment that you discover that within yourself, and you discover yourself through it. So this, this particular poem and many poems like that has, contemplating that whether we know that what we are today, we are not just a man or a woman in this world. We are beyond that. We are beyond the genders, like sir was talking about today, that all sorts of like lesbian, like LGBTQ community, everyone, we can, take everyone together here and describe it, that we are neither fully, we cannot say that we are females, not we can even say that we are fully males as whole, because everything is, point of like it's relative to the situation, to our feeling.
Very nice, Haimanti. Actually, I could say that this is a very bold attempt. Okay,
Thank you.
we call it as in Tamil we call it as Bhakti literature. Whatever the poems and you have called, we call it as Bhakti literature. But this is very new that I could hear some interpretations, postmodern interpretation for Bhakti literature of this ball clan sect. Okay, very nice, ma. Okay, all the very best.
Okay,
You
ma'am.
have done well. Not only
Thank
your
you.
topic, your presentation was also very good.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
So the next presenter is Batmaja Mishra, a postgraduate scholar. Her topic is The Kite Runner, Post-Analysis in the Pretext of Postmodernity. Batmaja ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone present over here. I am Padmaja Mishra from a post-graduation scholar from Revancha University, Cuttack, Odisha. And I feel extremely grateful that I have got this opportunity to present my paper that is titled The Kite Runner, Psychoanalysis in the Pretext of Postmodernity. So, as we all know, the current postmodern society we live in is a hub of ideas in every field. Like the human mind has developed multifarious labyrinths, which is full of mystery. An individual goes through several crises, be it the fragmented reality, or culture, or identity, or society. So, in the concerned novel, The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini, he aims to incorporate the tricky play of the mind in shaping one's life ahead. So the novel is set in war afflicted Afghanistan. This has 25 chapters which takes the reader through the journey of two characters, that is Amir and Hassan, where Amir is overburdened by the guilt for decades and finally seeks redemption for his sin, and Hassan is left without a closure and meets his undeserved end. So, in this essay, various psychological theories have been incorporated to enlighten the journey from naivety to realization. It illustrates how our lives revolve around our experiences that we have faced, and that has taken a sort of backseat in our unconscious mind, which comes to the fore some in very weird shapes and situations. So it also reveals the characters going through the Oedipus and inferior complex, and how it is deeply ingrained in the characters' collective unconsciousness, which led to their growing up as indeterminate individuals. So, as all of us know, that Sigmund Freud explains his theory of personality by dividing the mind of an individual into three separate planes. That is the conscious, the unconscious, and the subconscious, or the preconscious. He compares the three divisions into an iceberg, where he describes the preconscious and unconscious as a harmony of psychoid, the conscious as a resting on perception of the most immediate and certain. And directly, what is done, what Hosseini does in the first opening lines of the novel itself is he directly exposes the reader to the past traumatic experience that the narrator Amir had to go through, which instilled the guilt in him. He preserves that feeling, and that is written in a quote that because the past claws its way out, looking back now, I realize I have been peeking into the deserted ally for the last 26 years. The other personality determining factor in Amir's case is his distance from his father after his mother's death. So, during childbirth, his mother dies, and Amir's father always holds him accountable for his mother's death. So, there is another quote he writes here. Sometimes I asked Baba if I could sit with them, but Baba would stand in the doorway. Go on now, he would say. This is grown ups' time. I would sit by the door, knees drawn to my chest. Sometimes I sat there for an hour, sometimes two, listening to their laughter, their chatter. And this somewhere inculcates the Oedipus complex in his child's psyche. And Freud in his interpretation of dreams gives a like an example how it is incorporated in the psychology of people. Like he writes, Cronus devours his children as the wild boar devours the brood of the sow. Zeus emasculates his father and takes his place as a ruler. The more despotically the father ruled in the ancient family, the more must the son have taken the position of an enemy. So even he even agrees that he hates his father at times. He says the problem, of course, was that Baba saw the world in black and white, and he got to decide what was black and what was white. You can't love a person who lives that way without fearing him too, maybe even hating him a little. So Amit does everything at his disposal to seek validation from his father, from signing up for the soccer team to being a spectator at the Buzkhasi tournament. He did it all only to see that pride for him in his father's eyes. However, he fails miserably. He overhears a conversation between his father and his father's friend, that is Rahim Khan, and he heard his father complaining about his fragility and unmanliness. His father was like a stranger to him. So the Kai tournament was his only opportunity to get back the lost faith of his father in him. And this character Hassan is a Hazara servant to Amir, and he is also a motherless child. So they bond over that motherlessness very often. But yet, Amir is quite envied for the attention his father gives to that Hazara servant of theirs rather than him. So he says that I wished I too had some kind of a scar that would beget Baba's sympathy. It wasn't fair. Hassan hadn't done anything to earn Baba's affections. On the contrary, Hassan can go to any extent for his Amir Aga, like Amir brother in their language. So, and he also believes in him with a immense devotion kind of a thing. He did not mind when Amir played tricks on him while reading him stories, nor did he react when Amir drove him into throwing a pomegranate to him. Rather, he smeared it on himself, which makes the readers realize that he would not hurt Amir at any harsh situation, even. So, and the reason that he also gets sexually abused by Asif and their gang is that he was running a kite for Amir itself. So, but he had a chance to escape that brutality by surrendering the kite to Asif. But he chose his army raga, and there is a very beautiful sentence in the novel which goes like 1,000 times over. So, but Amir was always driven by the fear of getting hurt. So, even when he saw Hassan being abused inhumanly, he could not overcome it. His father's words fit true in this situation. He says he never fights back, never. He just drops his head. He agrees to it that he would have abandoned a lifetime's worth of guilt that if he had stepped up. And he says, I had one last chance to make a decision, one final opportunity to decide who I was going to be. I could step into that ally, stand up for Hassan the way he had stood up for me all those times in the past, and accept whatever happened to me, or I could run. In the end, I ran. I ran because I was a coward. So, after this incident, the guilt driven subconscious starts to haunt Amir on a daily basis. Like he mostly remains secluded in his room. He avoids any confrontation with Hassan. He also has got nightmares, and he sees little shapes forming behind his eyelids, and all he sees is the brown corduroy pants that Hassan was wearing while that was laid discarded in the pile of bricks that while he was being abused. So in that way, the subconscious somewhere haunts him, that guilt stricken subconscious. So he also mutters sometimes in his sleep. He mutters the confessions that I saw him get raped, but no, he wishes that somebody hears it and he faces the repercussion. But then the fate has other plans for him, and he nobody hears him, and he lives with that guilt throughout these years. So, and there is a concept of dreams that also runs as an undercurrent through the novel, which is the interest of the study by Sigmund Freud, as he writes in Interpretation of Dreams. He suggests that dreams were another route to the unconscious, while information from the unconscious mind may sometimes appear in dreams. He believed that it was often in a disguised form. The literal content of a dream has to be interpreted in order to carve out the latent content of the dream. So Amir often dreams about his father wrestling with a bear, and he can never save his father. So in dream interpretation, uh, according to the popular culture, a bear symbolizes the want for new beginnings, which Amit desperately desires. Hunting or trying to chase a bear also represents the secret desire of the dreamer to hunt and bring something into his own life. In this case, we may consider that it's the hunting of victory and pride which Amir yearns to bring for his father. And Hassan also once dreams of a monster in the Garga lake, which signifies impending danger and unpleasant situations. So later, Amir also confesses that there was a monster in the lake. It had grabbed Hassan by the ankles, dragged him to the murky bottoms. I was that monster. So, and there is another thing also, like there's this situation where subconsciously Amir always refers to Hassan as a Hazara servant, though he does not want to, and that we can consider as a Freudian slip. So with the, and to conclude with, I will like to quote Joseph Morphe's lines, where he writes, you are a gardener, you are planting seeds of thought in your subconscious mind all day long. Much of the time, you are not even aware of doing so because the seeds are based on your habitual thinking. As you sow in your subconscious mind, so shall you reap in your body and environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Padmaja. Very detailed presentation it was. You have explained, you have justified your title. Okay, the psychoanalytical interpretations and everything I've given. But I have a doubt. In your title, what is the point? Why you have used the word pretext? Can you justify it?
Yes, ma'am. The psychoanalysis concept was not very popular during the old times, but in postmodern times, this emotions and the labyrinths of mind that authors are trying to explore those horizons which were somewhere not explored before. So, in the pretext of modernity, I have tried to incorporate this thing of psychoanalysis in Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini. So that's where the title comes from.
Okay, nice, very nice. Okay, so any questions? Any questions from the other participants, other presenters?
No, ma'am.
Okay, ma. Very good. Okay, ma. So the next presenter is Sonal Agarwal, a PhD research scholar. Her title is The Theme of Marginalization and Crisis of Women Survival in Kennelly's Blood Red and Sister Rose. Welcome, Sonal.
Sonal, could you please unmute yourself?
Hello,
Yes,
it
you're
is
audible,
audible.
ma. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving me such a this opportunity. I'm Sonal Agrawal from Barkatullah University, Bhopal. I am a research scholar. The present paper title is the theme of marginality and crisis of woman survival in Kinnelly's Blood Red Sister Rose. The present paper is a humble attempt to explain the fact of social and historical elements in the novels of Kennelly's The Blood Red Sister Rose. The novel is written by Thomas Kennelly in 1974. The Thomas Kennelly is one of the most uh, famous Australian novelist. He has he's winner of many awards like Booker Prize, Miles Franklin Awards. The present paper is on the novel of Blood Red Sister Rose. Introduction of the novel. Blood Red Sister Rose is a seriously literary novel about Joan of Arc, that is Jenny. She has the mystery of her mind that neither romanticizing them nor entirely explaining them. She was born on the edge of France in a peasant family. She is an illiterate girl. In the novel, Jenny's womanhood is wrecked because she is unable to mensurate. In the book, she says, "There is something wrong in my womb." In this novel, the theme of sexual marginalization is presented. She was also marginal between Christianity and some weird old things from ancient Europe. She says her village is Christian but steeped in pagan mysticism. The second point is explained by Kennelly, that is the myth of Joan of Arc and the Hundred Years' War. Joan of Arc is one of the saints of France. She is deliberate as an idol in France from her contribution during the Lancetian period of the Hundred Years' War, and idolized as a Roman Catholic saint. According to Joan, she was frequented holy, holy nations of the Saint Margaret and Saint Catherine, advising her to assist Charles II and recuperate France from control of English. Consequently, the uncrowned King Charles II sent John to the seas of Orleans as a part of relief missions. This long awaited incident enhanced the morale of the France and moved the nation towards its final triumph. Joan of Arc has persisted as a prominent figure in literature, painting, and other tradition works in the time of her that. The other point is that the identity crisis in the novel of Jenny. Kinnelet turned from writing local history to world history and introduced a recurring interest in welfare into his literature piece. Kinnelet's portrait of Joan of Arc is considered objective and human, emphasizing her everyday qualities within the uncommon context of 15th century welfare. Jenny insists on being taken to France, uncrowned king, the Dauphin Charles, and leading his army against France English. Jenny believed that some supernatural power directed to her. She was directed by the opinions of Saint Michel, Margaret, and Catherine, and credited their commands for their success. Kinnelet deals with the social stigmas and insanity of the word against sanity of Jenny. Jenny, unlike an average girl, she doesn't bleed in a usual way. Kinnelet skillfully presents the dilemma of a young girl by paralleling it to Joan of Arc as a result of the society. The component of compensation is evident in Jenny's behavior, the inability to menstruate, which is associated with the identity of a woman, makes Jenny uncertain about her individuality. She dressing in the attire of man, she think that he's someone else no one might ever think there is a girl, let me father and mother love it. In the summing part, the author highlights Janie's everyday quality within the unusual settings of 15th century combat to show how the war disrupted her normal life of Jenny. Thank you so much.
Nice, Sonal. Any questions from the participants and the other presenters? Any questions? Sonal, I have a question with you.
Yes,
Can you give some examples of the other forms of marginalization?
yes, ma'am. The Jenny, the marginalism is for the Jenny because she is a girl that she is not mensurate. This is a natural thing or for the anyone else. She is not responsible for it, but the condition of this century, this is the Thomas Canley depiction of the 15th century's crisis. Ki woman is not woman if she is not gave the birth of anyone. She is only the place at home and do her duty towards the family and other things. But the Jenny is want to do something else. Some Joan of Arc is the historical elements of the France because she was a saint for the France. She is a little girl of 13th age. She fight for the France and got the title of Orleans, and she deliberate her strength as a girl power. Thank you.
Sonal, is this novel has only gender-based marginalization? Can we conclude like that?
Yes, ma'am. And it is showing the character of Joan of Arc. That is a historical element.
Okay, fine. So we have the next presenter, A. Bindu Shri Geeta Madhuri Devi, a PG student from AP. Her title is Ecofeminism in Three Tollywood Movies. Bindu, we are eagerly waiting.
Thank you, ma'am. Myself, Bindu Shri Geeta Madhuri Devi, and I'm from Andhra Pradesh, and I'm a PG student currently from Andhra University. So, my paper title is Ecofeminism in Three Tollywood Movies, that is Paharela Vayasu, and uh, sorry, Paharela Vayasu, Osai Ramalamma, and 36 Vaisulu. These are all Telugu films which have ecofeminism concepts in it. Okay, I'm going to give a brief outline like what I'm going to discuss in my paper through questions like what is ecofeminism, how it flourished in India, and what are the important factors that we need to consider for the study of films, how films have ecofeminist concepts that have affected the society. So basically, what is ecofeminism? According to my view, ecofeminism is a concept, is one of those concepts which influence the ideology of society. It can be either conservation of nature or protection for women. Through its projection of charm of the man's mind, showing its cause civilization, and he turned himself to change his ideologies from the for the better social welfare. So we find many very few feminist movies when in the early 20th century when compared to the late 20th or early 21st century. But nowadays there are many feminist movies that we see in films. So in Indian films. So I have considered these films because these films have acted a crucial role in changing the society's perspectives also. As ecofeminism has started in 1970s, early of 1970s, by the French writer Francois Daubon in her book La Feminisme ou la Mort in 1974. Padharela Vaisu, which have included in my title, is the first movie that has eco-feminist concept that was released in 1978, which is about a female lead of 16 years old who was into the patriarchal domination and the subjugation and was actually decepted. She was actually into the treachery of a man, of an adult. And in the next part of the movie we can see that she can be a good or matured woman, and she guides and helps her beloved also. So how the women has transformed from an immature to the mature through having the experiences that she has faced in her life during the period like after puberty. So how she has managed through the experiences. So these are the ecofeminist concepts, like and also how the screenplay was made, like when she was having the deceptive words from her previous lover. sh- those background scores were given as the with the animal cruelty side by side in a parallel, like the deceptive things were shown with the women, and also side by side the cruelty was shown towards the animal. So we can see the comparison between nature and also women that are being treated uh, with cruelty, like with either with the words or with the whipping or some cruel things that are meant to be done by the people in the movie. So, and another movie I'm going to talk about is Osai Ramulama, which is having Dalit woman as a lead, female lead, and it was released in 1995. This is also one of the main movies which has created a great and massive change in the society's perspectives. Uh, in that movie we can see patriarchal domination and subjugation of women and the slavery of Dalit women, as we know how the landlords had treated Dalit women previously before the amendments of laws were taken for Dalit women's liberation and all. So that was shown in that movie, and the revolution taken up by that Ramulamma, who is the female lead, is actually an eco-feminist concept. So she was actually insulted. Indeed, she was made into really an horrible situation by the landlords in front of every villagers. That made her to kill the landlords itself. So, with the help of Naxalite, she has made her revolution, and she has brought a great change for the Dalit women, and also she has created a great liberation for them. And next, we are talking about 36 Wise Law, which is having a female lead of 36 years old. Um, in Telugu, Jyotika has acted in it as a female lead. In that we can see the Osai Ramulamma and also Palaharela Vayasu Vayasulo. These two films are dealing with radical feminism, and 36 Vayasulo is dealing with organic feminism, which talks about the vegetation and also the feminist concepts. So here we can find in 36 Vayasulo movie about the concept that Jyotika, or the female lead, has taken. Like she was actually having an idea to move to abroad to live with her family. So she was actually waiting for an opportunity to move to abroad for a job, but she was not successful with it. And when she was actually introduced to a business like vegetable business, she got connected to that, and she changed her mind, like to stay back in her home, in her in-laws home, and do that business, so that everyone can get benefited from those organic vegetables. See how the thought process has changed. The connection with herself and with the nature has made her to change her idea of going to abroad, like staying back in her hometown, like with her in-laws home. So the concept, the ideology of the female lead is actually dealt with organic ecofeminism. So these are the things I'm going to discuss in my paper. Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
Industry, very different attempt, ma. Really, it was very good. Any questions from the audience or other presenters side? Any questions? Okay, Bindu, I have a question with you.
Yes, ma'am.
In 36 vayasule, that is the 36 vayasule. So how does the ecological consciousness of the protagonist was presented, that was expressed in that movie?
Okay, at present she was actually made into, like, she was discouraged with her abilities, like whatever the skills she has, she was discouraged by the society or either by the family. uh, so that is one of the concepts of ecofeminism. And second one, the nature of her ideology, like it is so naturalistic, and it was not encouraged by the people, but she stood for herself and has made that concept into practical. Like she has made everyone to realize what the cause behind her uh, thought of doing this vegetable business, that can make a great what I should say, uh, great awakening to the people to go with the organic vegetation that can make everyone's health better. So that should be employed right now. So we are all discussing, and we are all going with the organic vegetables. So this is also one of the concepts that are existing in that movie. So I'm considering that into my research, ma'am.
Super, ma'am. This is what I too expected.
Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Very nice. So the next presenter is Neha Raghavanshi, a research scholar. Her title is Individual Identity Crisis in Michael Odente's The English Patient.
Sorry. Good morning to all. My name is Neha Raghuvanshi. I am from Barkatullah University, a research scholar. Today, my presentation topic is Individual Crisis in Michael Odanji's The English Patient. As before presenting this paper, I am telling you about this novel that the title itself shows the identity crisis because the English patient is the not the name of that person. This is the identity because he has born somewhere in some incident. So, the main purpose of this paper is to analyze the identity crisis in Michael Odanges as the English Patient, which is published in 1992, and for this novel, he got Nobel Prize in 2018. Michael Odanje is a Canadian writer and born in Sri Lanka. The English Patient shows different shades of love, mystery, human psyche, and the characters are very true to define or perform their deeds as Hannah. Hannah, the character of the novel, love for English Patient is very true and novel. As known, come to the point, as known, identity is a social construct and largely determined by the relationship between self and the other. The survival of the nation depends upon the invention or the performance of traditions, historicals, and symbols which help people to sustain their identity. The English Patient is a novel that questions the nation and the nationalism that shape identity through the colonial and the anti-colonial nationalism. Characters are all exiled from their homeland who have gathered at one place. The name of that place is Villa, and which is the period of that end of the World War II. And in fact, the inhabitants of the villa are all displaced because they are exiled who have found new identities in a place rather than their homeland. Since the novel questions colonial hierarchies, particularly the imperial conception of space and place through the mapping of desert, which is an instrument of colonial domination, and the desert's elusiveness because of its vastness and uncontrollable sandstorm. To conclude, the novel questions nationalism and nations as colonial components and concepts both in the form of colonial and anti-colonial nationalism, which are imaginary, essentialist, and resist, causing the destruction of civilization and suffering to westerns and colonized subjects such as Olmesi, Caravaggio, Hana, and Cape. The novel offers colonial, post-colonial reading too. Thank you. Thanks to listening me.
Thank you, Neha. Very short presentation. Any questions from audience or the other presenters side?
Yes, ma'am. I have one question.
Yeah,
ma'am.
maybe.
I want to ask that how you have correlated or how your paper is dealing with the colonial hierarchy or colonial domination with individual identity crisis. I think you are getting me.
I'm not able to understand, ma'am.
Nidhi is asking how you correlate an individual's with now the question of nationalism. Actually, I was about to ask this question.
Hello.
At least you shall do one thing. Give us instances of questioning the nationalism from this novel.
Sorry. Hello.
Some incidents whichever happened in this novel, which questions nationalism.
Yes, ma'am. The situation is that when the English patient suffered from burning, that time he lost his identity, and the another person, the name is the nurse name is Hana, which she has tried to remind him his identity, and he has lost his identity. The name of that person is that is why the name of that novel is English patient, because he lost his nationality too during the World War II. There are many countries who has suffered from this identity during that World War II. So that incident, the plane incident, plane crashed that time, and this incident occurs that the patient lost his nationality or identity.
Nidhi, is your question answered?
Yes, ma'am, to some extent. Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, she says that it's not only for the protagonist, but also many people, group of people, they lost their identity. That made to have a question on the nationalism. Neha, another one question with you. Do you find any autobiographical elements in this novel?
Autobiographical element to is novel में no ma'am, not in this novel. His other novel is Running in the Family, which is fully depend on autobiographical element.
Okay, so while you gave the author's introduction, you told that you have presented that he was a or he was a person from Ceylon and migrated to Canada, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So personally, I feel that the plight that might have made him to write a novel like this.
Yes, ma'am. I'm not able to hear your voice properly. Can you
Oh,
please repeat it?
wait a minute. Is your author a refugee?
Yes, ma'am.
Is your author a refugee?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So that's the reason. As he's a refugee, I feel that.
He is an immigrant. He moved to England in 1954. And then
Okay.
in 1962, he moved to Canada, where he has lived ever since.
Okay. So it's not a forced migration, right?
Yes,
Voluntary
ma'am.
migration only.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The political scenario of Ceylon, it didn't allow its people to have a voluntary migration. It enforced them to migrate. That's the reason I have asked that question.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you,
ma.
ma'am.
So
Thank
anyway,
you.
nice. Okay, ma. Thank you. So the last presenter for this session is Manju Kumari, a research scholar. Her title is Code Swifting of Assami Culture and Language.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, ma. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manju Kumari, and I am a research scholar at Arunachal University of Studies, Namsai, Arunachal Pradesh. And my topic of presentation is code switching of Assamese language and culture. Before proceeding to my presentation, I would like to give the meaning of code switching. In linguistics, code switching means language alteration where we mix two or more languages together to communicate with others. Similarly, we can say that it means to mix up two or more customs together to form a new culture. As switching between languages is exceedingly common and it takes place in many forms, we can recognize code switching more often as sentence alteration. So the objective of my paper is to study the transformation in the cultures and languages of Assam with specific reference to the marriage rituals and the languages used by the people in the 21st century. Indian cultures and languages had their source thousands of years ago when human civilization started forming their society or community, cultures, and languages. Similarly, Assamese language and culture had an ancient origin. it is glimpsed that the cultures and languages of Northeast Indian states have been losing their verisimilitude. Due to excessive immigration in the northeastern states of India and particularly in Assam from the neighboring states and countries, we witness drastic changes in the cultures and languages of the society. Also, due to the massive impact of social media on young minds, the culture and the traditional values of the established community are transforming. People all over the world are trying to learn different languages and cultures to cope up with the people of different countries and religions. Indian people mostly prefer to speak in their mother tongue and follow their cultures wholeheartedly. We can hear people mixing the two languages while speaking, that is Hindi and English, which according to them is the language of the civilized world. Assam is such a place where people of the various regions of India with different religions, languages, cultures, and traditions are living together. Hence, it is natural to have a mixture of one's language and culture due to direct or indirect contact with them. So, the languages of all countries and states are changing rapidly. Mixture of Hindi and English has given origin to a new language, that is Hinglish in India. People of Assam and mostly the new generation, they try to mix up their mother tongue, that is Assamese, with English, Hindi, as well as Korean languages due to the huge influence of K-pop industry. If one notices closely, it is clear that to cope up and deal with the new generations freely and to teach and express their ideas with others, it is also a much needed agenda in our day-to-day lives. So learning a new language has always been exciting and interesting. It makes people understand each other's feelings, ideas, and concepts, and it also makes communication successful. But the drawback of this is that the original language is lost amongst many other languages and dialects. The main language of Assam is Assamese, and scholars opine that the origin of Assamese goes back to the Magadhan Prakrit script, and it is spoken by majority of the people in Assam. Besides Assamese, we can hear Bengali, Hindi, English, Nepali, Nagamese, Bodo, Adivasi, etc. Assamese is a mixed language in which words were borrowed from Indo-Aryan and Indo-Chinese. However, pre-Aryan and post-Aryan grammar, syntax, and pronunciation are discernible in the language. There might have been changes in the language of Assam during the British rule, as Chinese slaves were brought into Assam for tea cultivation. And with the advent of the British rule, Indian cultures, languages, religions, and traditions, everything got mixed up. That means it got code switched by or changed because of the divide and rule policy of the colonizers. Even after they left, they made us Indians in color, but Western in choice. Our ancestors, they tried their best to keep the Assamese linguistic identity intact. And the organizations like United Liberation Front of Assam were committed to defend the rights of the Assamese ethnicity, though they have to be undergrounded. UN Misra, he says that identity politics, which began with linguistic assertion in the first decade after independence, has traversed a long and tortuous course, spawning ever new movements for political and territorial space. And all the people who speak fluent Assamese were or are considered as Assamese, but the past had lots of struggles. While immigrating to Assam, people had to embrace the cultures and languages of the state, and so do the Assamese people embrace the cultures and languages of other states or countries to understand each other and stand united against the colonizers. So, in the modern period or in the 21st century, it is noticeable of the undergoing changes in the language. People are more concerned about being identified as modern and civilized rather than showing their true identity. They use the most simplified words and terms to denote to something, making communication successful. Nowadays, the use of grammar and syntax in a particular language couldn't be identified clearly due to excessive inclusion of English and Hindi words in Assamese language. Even in Assamese movies, we see that a village girl is always presented as a true portrayal of ethnic identity, or on the other hand, a modern city girl never makes efforts to learn their mother tongue or culture. Thus, it gives a negative impact on the minds of the youth of the state. Also, the parents are trying to make their children score 100 out of 100 in the long run of life, making the children learn other languages, mostly English, first, and keeping the first language or the mother tongue aside, make the children lose their ethnicity or identity. So the drawback of the parents here lies is that they think making their children learn other languages like English first will make them intelligent and successful in life, whereas mother tongue or the state language can be learned later in life automatically when the children come in contact with their friends in schools during language classes. So to stand up in the social ladder, the original language is lost. It becomes nothing but a hybrid product. Mixture of too many languages can lead to the loss of ethnic identity, which is not understood by today's generation. It is also noticed that when two people of same community and culture, they come across each other after a long period of time, the very first language they use is either English or Hindi. Like, oh my God, long time no see, how are you doing? Instead of using their own mother tongue, they just use the English words to show themselves as sophisticated. So this shows that the person is not comfortable to speak in his or her mother tongue. We never say Subratri or Suprabhat because we find it funny if someone says in front of us. On the other hand, we are very much comfortable in saying good night or good morning. So no matter English is a global language and Hindi the national language, we should never try to impress others by forgetting our history or originality. Looking down upon our true identity and language and trying to impress the people saying I am modern do not signify the development of a person's mind. Until and unless a person learns to respect their own self, they won't be able to accept others. We all want to be accepted by others and to be recognized. We all want others to understand us, and that is the reason why people from colonized countries mostly they learned Western culture and language to voice out their feelings. It gave them success, but this success also became their own defeat because what Macaulay said in his Minutes on Education, it became true. People lost their culture, language, tradition, food habits, etc. Now, talking about the culture of Assam is really influential. Bihu, being the most famous festival, is celebrated thrice in a year, that is January, April, and October. And all the festivals are celebrated in praise of different Hindu gods, and all the Bihu festivals mostly are related to cultivation. And these people, they enjoy their festivals by singing their folk songs and dancing with traditional musical instruments. However, in today's era, there is a change in everything. People are more dependent on modern technology and um, are trying to include all of these in their life. Like traditional musical equipments have replaced, okay, by modern instruments. So developing oneself is not a bad thing, but forgetting the real culture puts an interrogation mark to ourselves. Coming to the marriage rituals of Assamese people were really simple and genuine. In fact, Assam was such a state where dowry system was not prevalent. It is not prevalent now also. Though it is banned in the country, we witness people still going for dowry practices. Influence of colonizers, they changed most of the things, both ethically and unethically. But the influence of colonizers were such that the indigenous people tried to copy the Western culture and add it into their own because they were losing their own culture. So the traditional marriage system of Assamese people was such that the girls who attended puberty were married to a banana tree first. where only women were allowed to enjoy the celebration. But now we witness that men enjoy those rituals with DJs and all. We all want to capture our best moments in life. Due to modern technologies, it has become very easy for us to hold back the moments of joy, sorrow, and lot more. More than celebrating the customs and rituals in a traditional way, people try to show off their private moments to others, like going for pre-wedding photo shoot and post-wedding photo shoot is not that mandatory, but still due to the huge influence of social media and mostly the daily soaps, people waste their money in these ways. Well, it's their money, so we cannot judge. Then next is like haldi ceremony, mehndi ceremony, sangeet ceremony. These rituals are not the original tradition of Assam. Yet we witness girls enjoying their bachelorette party, then cake cutting ceremony of the bride and groom. Then talking about the dress, the traditional mekhla chador is being replaced by a lehenga now. And showering gifts on children is appreciated, but in the modern period, it has become a fashion. People say it is not dowry, but they order these or that from parents. Even if they don't have the money, parents are forced to fulfill the desires of their children. And the brides or the grooms can wear a simple dress or a cheap dress too. Still, they can look beautiful, but people are so blindfolded by the movies and daily soaps that we try to copy everything. People are rich or middle class, it doesn't matter. They need designer dresses and 5-layered cakes during wedding. So a ring ceremony also. Like ring ceremony was never celebrated in ancient Assam, but now it is a fashion. Yes, in the name of ring ceremony, there was a Juron ceremony where few women from the groom's side, they used to come with jewelry and dress for the bride. But what we witness today is people organizing a ring ceremony, and the bride and the groom, they exchange rings. And concluding my presentation, I would like to say that it is not necessary to showcase ourselves as being modern. We are already in a modern age. The first priority should be given on the original language and culture. And the most important thing is to make our mind develop and work for the benefit of the society. Being practical and going all together with modern and traditional language, culture, and values makes a person develop. Only because we want to be included and accepted by certain people do not imply that we should disrespect our own culture and traditional gifts that we have received from our ancestors. They had tried and fought to keep the originality intact. So it is our duty of the new generations to not to forget our ethnic identity. We have already lost our individuality of being in a particular community. If the upcoming generations are taught properly about the struggle our ancestors went through to keep our culture and language alive, then only it will be possible for us to cope up with the outside world. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Very, very nice, Manju Kumari, with such a elaborative presentation it was. Okay, any questions from
Thank you,
audience
ma'am.
side or the presenters, the other presenters? Any questions? Okay, so Manju Kumari, I have two questions with you. Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
so but I could feel the pain of you. So even at the presentation itself, you couldn't be so happy when you think of the code switching and all, right? Okay, so I
Yes,
could
ma'am.
feel because you are personally into that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay,
Ma'am,
very nice one.
biologically, I am from Uttar Pradesh, but
You are from?
we have, I'm from Uttar Pradesh, but we are settled in Assam. So I have
Okay,
seen the development as well as the decline of the language and culture.
okay, okay, ma. Okay, so do you feel that this code switching is inevitable? Is it possible to avoid it? Is it
In a
possible
modern
to
era,
avoid?
it is not, no, ma'am, it is not possible. But yes, while speaking, like today we are speaking in English. So I addressed everyone as good morning or good afternoon. But when we talk in our own language, we can at least speak other languages. We can speak fluently in our own. So in that way, we can do that.
Okay, so while we do that, we could avoid it, right? Okay, and in
Exactly, ma'am.
between your presentation, so many times you have used the word that due to the influence of colonizers. Don't you feel that it is simply we are mimicking them? It's a kind
Exactly,
of
ma'am. We
mimicry,
are,
right? They
yes.
so nothing, no one can influence us. If we have
Okay.
the strong bond towards our tradition and custom, okay, if we really
Exactly.
love it, no one can influence it us, right?
Okay.
Okay, simply we people are mimicking them. The Western world, okay, the corporate world, indirectly they are doing everything. I accept, but at the same time, we love to mimic them, right?
Yes, exactly, ma'am.
So
What
it
the
is an
Britishers wanted, they
yeah,
did.
this is individual's responsibility, right? The way how you love your language, culture, custom, everything. This way each individual must do. Okay, so once each individual understand the what how classic it is, right? Unless until they understand it, they won't value it. Okay, but the fusion that is inevitable in the society, that is inevitable. But in that case, if the individual is so strong enough and the bond is very strong with the native language, the mother tongue, and the culture and tradition, surely we can avoid it. So sorry to say this. At least in other languages, you see, I am a Tamilian. I heard Tanglish here, and you knows the word English. But in Assami only, you told me that so many languages are being mixed. Right,
Yes,
really, it
ma'am.
is painful. Okay, ma. Nidhi,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you, ma. Nidhi,
Yes, yes, ma'am.
all the six presentations are over, ma.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so hearty congratulations to all the presenters. You have done well. Okay, personally I enjoyed thoroughly different six different dimensions. Right? Personally, I enjoyed a lot. All of you have presented well. You have given your best. Okay, so as all our scholars, young budding phases, so all the very best for your future. Hearty congratulations once again. So once again, I render my gratitude to IFEST for giving me this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sparing your precious time in sharing this session and accepting our invitation at such a short notice. We are highly obliged to you.
Thank you, Nidhi. Personally, I thank you for your cooperation and you supported me well.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay, ma. Shall we wind up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So bye to everyone. Have a great day.